Have you ever wondered how quick your database is? We often hear from people saying that databases don't scale, they're slow, they don't handle constraints that very well and things like that. So here's a little example that I've gotten from Conor McDonald, and I've adapted it slightly to do a little test. Now I'm running a virtual machine on my laptop here, so it's not a particularly high spec laptop. It's a kind of a basic one to a certain extent, and I'm running the 23 AI virtual machine. So let's do this test to be able to see how quick this particular virtual machine can handle processing data. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some tables that we're going to use and insert some data into it. So in some cases it's a few thousand records, but we're going to be running lots of queries against this kind of in parallel and at various different kind of batch levels. So we're going to create our 4 different tables, and what we can then do is we're going to create another table that has some constraints on it, which is going to be kind of our like a fact table within kind of a dimensional model. We're just going to add a primary key and a partition index on that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a log table. So the first table that we're going to create is going to be what's called hammer log, which is going to return the number of seconds it takes to execute each individual job. And I'll come to that in a moment. So it's just going to say for a job ID, how long did it actually take? Now each job is going to take approximately or perform approximately the same amount of work. Okay. And within this, what we're effectively going to do is we're going to ask it to, perform 96,000 inserts into a particular table, and that's the way of we're going to use to test things. So let me just highlight this particular procedure. We want to create that as well, and then what we can do is we can actually run it. Okay, so we're just going to do a cleanup of it just in case. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to submit a number of jobs to be able to run that particular procedure. So run that. Well, in this particular case, we're going to submit it 12 times. Now, because we're going to use DBMS jobs, we're going to submit those jobs. Now, they're not all going to be there at the same second. They're going to be submitted and picked up by the database at various different times. So as the scheduler kind of picks up these jobs. So we're going to submit those, and what we can do is we can monitor those as they're being run. Now it takes a few seconds for this to really kind of kick in. And what we can do is we can start looking at, well, what are the jobs that have been created. So when we query that, well, what we get to see is we get to see that one of the jobs has already been started. And if we keep querying this, we'll see that there's another one after being started. Another one. Remember, we're waiting for it to have 12 different runs of this. So we have 4 completed. And what this allows us to do is it's running it for like 96,000 kind of records. Is being able, we're going to run it multiple times, so 12 times, and we'll be able to see is that what is the kind of the timing effect. And we get to see here already that some have been about just under 7 seconds, 6 seconds, 7.7 seconds. One is like 8.5 seconds. So each of them kind of take a varying kind of lengths of time to be able to complete. Okay, so we have most of them there now. A few more. There we have a few more. We're almost there. There's another one. So we get to see that these are appearing as we go along. a bit. Right, possibly have another one. Right, so that's it kind of completed. So now what we can do is, we can look at, what was the maximum time it took to actually run it. Okay, now in this particular case, this is 16 seconds. Now I have to say is, I've run this several times, and that's actually quite slow, right? So in comparison to what we need to do. So if I was kind of to take that and go and saying like, okay, for that amount of time, divided into the 96,000, is that, well, we get to have the number of transactions per second, and in this particular case, we get 68,749 transactions per second in relation to that. If I was kind of to use the minimum time, we'll get a bit of a different figure. So we'll get 1823290. All right. So that seems like an awful lot of transactions per second that we can actually kind of process. Now, we could add some indexes. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add some additional indexes to our tables. So just like in previous videos, we've seen scenarios where adding indexes can have a significant performance kind of gain on us. And what we're going to do is we're just going to run those tests again. So we're just going to delete down the tests that were there. We've captured the values from earlier on, just above from what's happened before. We submitted those jobs, and then what we can do is we can start monitoring to see, how they are being executed. There's the first one done. So considering like there's other things going on the database, and being able to kind of process them from there. Here we have the next one. Okay, and there we have all the 12 ones completed. Now we get to see that there's different times here. Now, I would say it's like the fan on my laptop is burning quite a bit, so there's other stuff going on. So when we start looking at the timings from this again, just like we did before, we get to see that this time, while we're able to do 104,591 transactions per second, where under the previous case, without the indexes, we were able to do 68,000 or 69,000. And if we were to take it for, let's go for the average amount, so that average number of times, when we run that, we're getting to have, it comes down, right? So quite a bit. So we just need to be a little bit mindful of some of those on it. Okay. So when we look at some of those things, we need to do some calculations just to verify, what is the kind of the upper and lower end of some of those kind of calculations. So there's a bit of an idea of how you can go about, calculating how quick or not your database is and whether it can actually scale.